Oh, another day, another episode. I hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the channel of a broke booktuber talking about the best books. Today we'll be talking about writing craft, and specifically we will be talking about dialogue. So let's get to this. I will read your comments in Twitter. I will respond to them. I will discuss them, and then I will talk about my views and my ideas for what I think a good dialogue should be. So yeah, join me and let's go. That was very quick introduction. So our first comment comes from Lacer. I believe that's no, it's Lorale. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, but I will talk about your comment and I will talk about your content, and I will honor you by discussing the content of your ideas. Let's talk about what he says. He says, my best suggestion for dialogue is what people would actually say in real life. Most people already can see events going on around them. Doesn't need to be explained. Don't need to use names too much, and even at times it can be mundane as long as it drives the plot. Now, I agree with you for the most part. However, I would like to add an expansion to what you said, which is the first bit of your comment, which is my best suggestion for dialogue is what people would actually say in real life. This is a hole for a lot of writers, because I remember when I was starting out as a writer, what I used to do is I would oftentimes see great dialogue by great authors, and I would be like, ooh, this feels like a normal conversation. I should try to emulate real life dialogue. And so I remember writing for my third manuscript when I decided to adopt this particular view. I started writing just bosses, some guy randomly screams from out of nowhere, and it doesn't really make sense. It's not even world building the world that the story takes place in. It's just there because I felt the need to sort of make it real. And what oftentimes this does in writing is it makes the book, or at least it bogs it down. It clutters it. It makes it very cluttered, and you end up not getting your point across quickly, because word economy is real, especially if you're writing a very large story with a very large cast. You oftentimes have to make sure that the story moves at a decent pace, and having your dialogue resemble real life dialogue means your characters might spend 30 minutes in one spot sitting across each other and just talking, and oftentimes they will be ending up going on tangents that randomly might often lead to completely different places for a conversation. In the real world, we don't have a problem with this. In fiction, word economy, it is very bad, and so I would say there is a hole with writing dialogue like it's real life. The way I have adopted writing dialogue actually is more or less the way I find oftentimes great authors write it, which is you actually try to make a version of life or a real life that is not real life, in the sense that it feels like a conversation two people might have, but it actually is not the way they would have it or the way it would happen in most scenarios in the real world. That is honestly the way I think most dialogue should be written, and I think that's the best way to write dialogue, which is emulate real life, not write as if your characters are in the real world, right? Our next comment comes from Rebecca Barton. She says, voice. It's not interesting if the characters all sound the same. I honestly cannot agree with you more. If I could change the laws of the universe so that I can agree with you more somehow, I would. This is really something I deeply subscribe to. But I do have to say one thing and add to this particular statement, which is, as an I wish I was an author. As a writer, sometimes it's really difficult trying to make voice. This difficulty can actually make writers end up having surface voice. In other words, the character expresses themselves uniquely. However, they do not have an internal voice. That means they don't have voice in their content. Their content, or at least the content of their character, is not unique. The voice and the way they present themselves is unique, however. And this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this. But I find dialogue most intriguing when the content of the character is specific and unique, as well as they have, unique presentation. Because oftentimes when people talk about unique voice, they are talking about presentation. I would say presentation plus content that is unique and specific for that character, and you will make me fall in love with your dialogue if the content of what is said is by a given character is opposed by another character. And this means the dialogue is really engaging because the character has voice, in other words, uniquely represented. Number two, the content is what they're saying is unique. Number three, what they are saying is opposed by another character who also has unique presentation, voice, and unique content because it opposes what the other said. And these two is just like, I love that. I love that when there are two characters that are both well established, that both have amazing voice, and they come together and they express themselves, and it just takes over the page. The book is no longer yours. You are in the book. Yeah, the book takes over. I really love that. I love that. And here is another comment that I specifically really love a lot, because I am so done. First of all, let's read the comment. It's by Max Perry. Max Perry, again, I'm awful with names. Anyway, it should have a tone, express the mood of the character, and how that mood is expressed shows their personality as well. And let me tell you why I think, this particular statement vibes with me so much. And this is because I have read few books in my life where the dialogue that is spoken by the characters communicates the tone of the story, and it adds to the setting of the world. Because if someone is in Texas and they are literally in scorching heat, they're not going to be talking like someone who is, in the plains of England, surrounded by nothing but cold breeze. So these characters should have, or at least different people should establish what they say, should establish the tone of the story. And that I think is valuable because I have rarely seen this done. So again, connecting the last comment with this comment, we have unique representation and unique content that is opposed by another character that is unique as well in their own way, added to tone and expression of the mood of the character. And this is what I would die for. If you are an author and you write a book that has dialogue with these 4 characteristics, you will have me. I will sell my soul to the devil to read your book. Literally, that's how much I love these particular traits in dialogue. So JMD, I'm not gonna read that, but I will read the content of this particular comment because I love it so much, because it talks about something that has happened to me and that I have had to learn the hard way, which is, he says or she says, I'm not particularly certain, whoever you are, you say dialogue is by far my favorite part of writing. To me as well. To me, what's most important is that it sounds natural. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct if that fits your character. And for the love of writing, this is the one. Read your dialogue out loud and see how it actually sounds. It should sound organic. This is very important because I used to write characters that sound almost always like professors. Like they are lecturing students and they are using words I have had to look for 15 minutes in the thesaurus because English is my third language. I didn't know how Americans or native speakers talk in English. I know how people speak my native language as well as Arabic in a natural way, in a normal tone. Specific ways of talking differ between languages, but oftentimes you will find those if you listen to people who are native to the language. And so over the years, initially what I used to write was people who almost sound too weird to be real, robots. And this was for my first and second manuscripts, which lasted for like 3 years of my life, which was 3 years of writing bad dialogue until I started to actually pick up an idea of how natives use English, and then I started to read it out loud and see if that matches somewhat what natives speak and what actual people who are expressing actual ideas would say. By actual people, I mean normal people they just wake up and they brush their teeth and they maybe drink a cup of cafe or tea and they have, I don't know, eggs with 2 slices of sandwich. And so yeah. Finally, let's talk about what I see as good dialogue. And oftentimes when I talk about dialogue, I have to link several of what I have heard before and I agree with wholeheartedly. For instance, in this particular video, we have seen multiple people express, unique representation, unique content, opposition between different people. In other words, argument, counter argument. And I remember seeing in the tweets, someone actually replied, argument, counter argument, argument / counter. Someone said that. Yes, I will actually put this up here. So when you put these 3 together, right, and you add to that, making it sound like believable as if the person spoke it for, you have to add the last 2 things that I love in dialogue, which are, this will complete the 6 things I love in dialogue, which is subtext as well as escalation. Because I love arguments, right? People who are talking to each other. This means when I read dialogue, I want those 2 people to not actually say everything they believe in. I want those 2 people, by the way, it could be more than 2 people, but the point is that I want them to have subtext, because oftentimes when people speak, they do not say what they want out loud in the most obvious, blunt way. Because oftentimes when real people communicate the ideas, they do not communicate what they believe directly. They will try to find ways to express what they believe in a sort of a sleight of hand. And people actually cannot help themselves but do this. Oftentimes, I have rarely met someone who's just blunt and is literally just opening their gut and letting the content just leak. Yeah, that's a very weird analogy, forgive me for that, but yes, it is rare that I have found someone who just talks directly and says what they believe without any subtext. Now add the next theme and the final theme that I love in dialogue, which is escalation. 2 people are arguing. Each one is dancing around what they believe. Slowly you build up and you build up. Each character corners the other. Slowly they fight and fight with words, and it reaches a point, a boiling point, right? And a point of maximum tension, where each character corners the other and chokes them and puts them in a situation where they have to exposit and say in the clearest way possible what they believe. If someone can put these 6 things into their dialogue, I will literally kill for that dialogue. I'm not gonna do it. It's just you get the point. So yes, those are the 6 things I love in dialogue. If you want to share yours, you can share them in the comments. You can go to Twitter as well. You can share them in there. I will always try to read. I read every comment that is ever submitted to me, especially in YouTube. Sometimes some things can leak through in Twitter because it's much larger, but it doesn't matter. I will read your comment, and please like and subscribe this video if you enjoyed the content. God bless you. I appreciate you watching and reaching this far. Bye bye.